As far as living in Zambia, I forgot this on the last section, but it will start to feel like home probably more quickly than you think. I don't know, maybe 6 months or something. We felt really comfortable. Again, I think that depends a lot on where you live and how safe you feel where you live. So when you're looking at places, I would really encourage that. Um, which doctor did we go to? Were you taken care of well? Yeah, there are several options. Definitely Google and check if this place called Optimal Health and Wellness is still there. Dr. Birkland. He was great. We didn't go to the doctor very often, but Alan burned his hand one time, and I got sick a couple times, not very sick. We were really fortunate. We didn't get stomach bugs, hardly at all. Maybe 2 or 3 times between us for the whole time. We were really fortunate with that. I would expect to get a lot more than that, or more than that. We were really well taken care of at that doctor. So it's a private place, but it's pretty inexpensive, $20 or $30. Labs are more expensive, but you can submit them for insurance. A lot of people go through SES, which is a different provider. You can Google them. I would search SES Zambia. They have insurance plans and doctors of their own. Yeah, we were just so fortunate with Dr. Birkland because he was such a caring, attentive doctor. It was easy to see him. He followed up so well. He once got me a referral to see a dermatologist because I was having these weird allergies. But he made sure I got in, even though it was going to be difficult to see that dermatologist. She was with SES, which again has a higher demand, so it can be harder to see them. Also, they're a bit farther away on the other side of town, whereas Optimal Wellness and Dr. Birkland was right near Roma, so you could be there in 5 minutes. They also had emergency services, so you knew that they could take care of you if you needed to. There are some private hospitals which vary in care. Coptic Hospital is one of the better ones. We've also gone there. Turned out to be fine, but we were a bit nervous. It's definitely different. The emergency care, if it's not something super, like if you need a life flight or something, you can get that. But if it's kind of middle of the road, you're not sure, it's definitely a different experience. I mean, we went to the emergency room and I really did not enjoy it because it was a Sunday and people weren't really around. And to me, you go to the ER and you can like find a person and you can at least know how long you're going to have to wait or tell them your problem, and it was not quite that way. So for most things you're going to be okay, but medical care definitely is different, and there are pros and cons. Like your average medicine is a lot cheaper, which is great, but you might not get the exact medicine you need. So check before you come because you might need to bring that with you. Different prescriptions, you need to really make sure. Sometimes the same drug is available, but not the same dosage, or it's a little bit different. You really don't want to mess with that, or you just want to know exactly what you're going to get or what's available. So someone can call around to pharmacies and double check if you have a specific one in mind. But things like allergy medicine or stomach medicine was much cheaper there than it is in the US. So that's an advantage. I would plan to do your like checkups or other things that are more serious, or maybe an eye doctor or something when you're home in the States, probably. But it's not impossible to have those done, especially if you're there longer term. How often did we travel? We traveled some. We didn't travel nearly as much as some other people. We traveled to Livingston, to Chobe National Park. It's in Botswana, actually. And then we traveled to South Luangwa, which was in Zambia. We loved it there. That's a national park with amazing animals and game drives. That was our favorite place. I would really recommend going there. You can fly, which is probably better than what we did, which is driving like 9 or 10 hours. It's kind of terrible, but it's fine if your car can do it. I would really recommend it. I mean, people love to travel in Zambia, and it's easy to go with groups of friends. I think it really helps people to feel sane and to feel like they can get out of the city. Um, yeah, we definitely didn't do it as much as others, but we just loved the animals and that's why we went to South Luangwa, because the game drives were so excellent. So we kind of prioritize that, but other people like to camp every weekend, and that's great. Again, at those lodges where you go maybe for the weekend or a 3-day weekend, maybe you bring your own food, but you have somewhere to sleep. Those things can be really fun. But I would recommend leaving Lusaka every couple months or every few months if you can, and taking people up on their offers. If people want to invite you somewhere or invite you camping, we went with older people from church or friends our own age. Like, I would just say yes to people and kind of go along with them. I resisted that sometimes because I was nervous or I just didn't feel like it. I wanted to be home. And yeah, just push yourself and go ahead and go. What are some of the most challenging cultural differences? I think just in general, the fact that you don't know for sure what people are thinking, or that I felt like I couldn't read people as well, was difficult because you don't really feel like you know people at the same level or like they know you. You're always navigating it, and I would say even if you're there for a really long time, you're always going to be navigating that. It's not going to go away, and if you think it's gone away, then you're mistaken, and that's not a good idea. You should always kind of feel how things are different, and someone might be interpreting what you're saying differently. But some of the most challenging differences, yeah, it's hard to know what people really mean, which as a teacher and in your role is going to be hard because you just have to ask questions differently without being condescending with people. If you ask someone if they're going to do something or if they agree, they're probably going to say yes. It's a culture that really likes to save face, so it's a lot easier to kind of say what makes the other person happy, especially someone in authority or perceived authority, rather than saying, I don't know what you mean. Like if I'm teaching about something or training or asking them to do something or whatever, they're going to kind of go along with it, and I'm only going to realize later that they didn't know what I meant. And so phrasing things differently, or really establishing, kind of building trust in those relationships is huge. But I did continue to find that difficult. Things are really slow. I didn't really mind that, maybe because I'm a slower person, but you're definitely going to need to wait for things. And it's going to feel at times like people don't care. Like when you go do stuff for your car, it's going to feel like, can't you do this faster? Or just, you're not telling me the truth, or things like that. Those things can be really frustrating. And I didn't experience all of them because Alan had taken care of some of our car stuff, so I know I was in a different position there. But those can be frustrating for sure. But I really liked a lot of the cultural differences. So things like just taking care of each other, being really communal and community oriented, is something I really value and really appreciated. Everyone's always looking out for each other in a lot of ways, and with their money, with their time, everything. I also liked the sense of time in a lot of ways not being as strict, so I think people were a lot more present. People joke that, like, a lot of Zambians, there's kind of one thing you're going to do that day. So like if there's one event on a Saturday, it's going to take all day, because in people's minds and that cultural and like way of organizing time, that's the one thing on the schedule for today. We're not like going to lunch and then going to a wedding or something. Like the wedding's it, or dinner at your family's house, that's it. I can't really do other stuff today because I'm doing that, and things just last a long time. So, but I kind of like that. I like that people aren't always rushing to get somewhere else. Yeah, and different things are the same too, just expressed in different ways. Like people like nice stuff or trendy things. They're not going to buy as much of it or spend the same amount on it, but people like that. People like to take selfies and like be, dressed well and stuff like that. I don't know how that relates, but not everything's different, I guess is what I'm saying. The most difficult reality to adjust to was probably I guess that there was no other options for people in terms of disability. That continued to be hard. That I don't know, there was no other options for services, but in most all cases, depending on your socioeconomic status, there still weren't really other good options. And just that people did not, I don't know. Let me think about that one. Okay, so I've thought about what was the most difficult reality to adjust to for me. And I don't know if I ever really adjusted, but the fact that it's still so hard to explain, the fact that you live in a relatively safe environment with a lot of resources. So you're not getting broken into. We had a pool in our plot. We had furniture and lots of stuff and access to things. We shopped at those places instead of the markets, things like that. The fact that you have that, and that's a contingent of Zambia, and then also that a 5-minute drive is into a compound and people are living really, really differently than you, and that's their reality, was hard to adjust to and hard to make sense of. Also, the fact that I never would really understand what was going on in those compounds. You can try, and I mean, it's good to try. You should get to know people, you should have experiences in there, but there are just some barriers that you're not going to overcome by yourself in a short or a mid-level amount of time there. And that having an experience with somebody where they show you around or cook and shima at their house and their compound is great and is a little slice of things, but that doesn't mean you know what it's like to live their life. So the fact that I could never fully get that, and yet those were the people who I spent all my time with, always felt kind of bad, and was hard to adjust to and to know what to do about and know how to use our resources. Sorry. And how to reconcile the fact that we were always going to have more, even if we tried to steward it really, really well. Yeah, that's tough. It's not a good answer. What did I do to unwind on stressful days? I would sit by the pool. Pretty much. I love sitting by the pool. It really helped my stress. I wasn't that stressed to begin with, but for me, like if I was at a community care center all day or even part of the day, it's really loud and really a lot going on, which is common for special ed, but it's just smaller rooms and so much singing and loud voices, and that is a certain kind of stress for me that I kind of carry for a long time. So unwinding was important, even if I wasn't stressed in the same way as I used to be as a special ed teacher in the US. But I would highly recommend, spending time outside is huge and was big for me. It was a great way to unwind. When I think back on my most stressful days, why were they stressful? What contributed to me feeling overwhelmed or uncertain about my life in Zambia? Oh dear. Kind of like I said, those times that were really loud would wear on me. I would get really stressed about our car and about driving around if I was nervous about it. If something wasn't working right with our car and I was going to be driving across town, I got stressed and hot in the car. Probably the most stressful was when our air conditioning wasn't working and I would drive around by myself and I would just think, if something goes wrong in this car, or I couldn't open the back windows because that's not smart, but there was no AC, so I was just hot and annoyed. I was probably the most uncertain when I would have an odd interaction with somebody at work, or just be reminded, I guess, that I wasn't going to fully understand people and they weren't going to fully understand me, and I would start to doubt, well, what am I doing, and is it mattering, or is it going to last? That didn't happen very often, but sometimes. And usually it was just kind of an off day and I had to just let it go, and it wasn't, it didn't mean that I wasn't supposed to be there or something. So just knowing that, okay, today was a weird day or a scary day, it's not the time to reevaluate whether I should be in this country, and then just kind of revisit it another time the next day. It's usually a good rule. And what else? I was probably uncertain at the beginning just because I didn't know what I was doing yet, and I really didn't like that because I, again, was doubting, like, well, am I going to be useful here? I don't have a really bubbly, like, outgoing, super fun personality, as you can tell, I guess. And a lot of Zambians do. And that's kind of a style that's been developed a lot at Special Hope. So I think I doubted a lot in the beginning, or felt uncertain or stressed. Like, oh my gosh, I can't lead circle time like that. Or that's not me and that's not what I'm going to add here. So if that's what I'm supposed to do, then I'm in trouble because that's not me. So I think, I felt uncertain when things weren't clearly defined, so I had to help define them more clearly of what expectations were, and also not compare myself to other people. It's always good. Was I ever scared? If I was, what made me feel safe? Yeah, I was scared, not that often. In general, I felt pretty comfortable. Granted, I lived really close to work, so I wasn't walking by myself that often. When I was, I felt pretty good about it. It's always nice when more people are around because, again, people are going to take care of each other. And so if, like, a little kid was heckling me or something, someone else would not let that happen. Like, another Zambian person would then yell at that kid to stop yelling at me, and then it'd be fine. But if nobody's around, that's generally when I felt more nervous, which I do in general in the States anyway, if I'm by myself in certain places. So, and again, nothing bad. I just felt more aware, more alert. I did feel scared a lot driving. I was often scared about the police because I always wanted to be honest, but stand up for myself and not get charged. I didn't want to pay bribes and that stuff. And you just have to be careful because they'll catch you on all sorts of things and then try to get money out of you, basically, unfortunately. So I was always afraid of that, even when I didn't need to be. And it only happened a couple times, and you get through it, and it's okay. It's going to be okay. What made me feel safe about that was usually when it was over. But the worst that's going to happen is just that you will have to pay like $30, and it's not the end of the world. It's really not. It did not bother other people to the same extent that it bothered me. But that's probably when I felt the most scared. I just didn't want to be talked at or intimidated, and I knew that I was a good target and by myself and whatever. And if I got lost, I was scared too. But you can pull up the map on your phone, or I would ask people. Other people wouldn't do that. One time I was driving to the radio station to be on the radio, and the map was wrong, and so I was in a pretty good part of town, but I needed to get there to be on air or whatever, and I saw these people walking on the road, and I know you judge people like they were in suits and whatever, and so I was more likely to ask them, I'm sure, but a group of a few people around my age walking. And I asked them, and they said, we're going there too. So they just showed me exactly where it was, and I ended up driving them in my car, which other people might not do, and that was later on when I was there. But, so yeah, being lost, I was scared, but it really depends on where you are. I would do that there. In a compound, I would not do that. But it really scared me to not know how to get out of somewhere. Which, as long as you're on a tarmac road, just a paved road, I didn't know what people were talking about, tarmac, Google Maps on your phone can help you. But if you're on dirt roads, that is not on Google Maps, and you better know how to get out of there. If you are also bothered by getting